Hello, Mr. Nick Carter.
Hello, my dear.
You look kind of hot.
I saw you in person once. You're as sexy in person as you are on television.
I think you're kind of hot too. So, tell us, you started with the corporate background. What led you to photography?
Well, first of all, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, my
My
dear.
tea with Joy. Thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I checked out a bunch of your videos, and your Oprah has nothing on you outside of the bank account, of course. Neither does Barbara Walters.
Talk to me, baby. Talk to me.
Okay. Well, I was interested in photography since high school, actually. And we're talking like, many, many moons ago. Photography was like the only thing that I was interested in high school. Well, I was interested in music also. So I took music and I also took photography in high school. And those things I really excelled at. Everything else I failed. So, no, not really. But those two things just really turned me on. And I just had a real passion for them. So, fast forward a whole bunch of years, I decided that at a point I wanted to be a professional photographer. But the opportunities were not there for me. It just wasn't the thing. I was in the corporate world at that time. And, money was pretty good, but I really wanted to be a photographer. So I decided, I'll get the ball in motion. I'll get it happening. This is right about maybe about 2000 and early 2000s. So unfortunately, the events of September 11th happened. And at that moment, the events of September 11th, that was a real a turning point for me. That was a very much a sentinel moment. So, excuse me, a lot of people died that day. And a lot of people died, unfulfilled. Right? And I took that home. It's like, that I don't want to be like that. And so I decided at that point that I wanted to be a photographer. It was important. So maybe a year or two after that, my mom passed away. And that was the worst thing that could have ever happened. So it's like, you know what? Let me do this like now. Let me make this happen. I'm going to work my tail off and make this whole thing happen. And I worked really hard. And then it just so happens that I got laid off from my corporate job, which was like the biggest blessing in the world that I got laid off, because that just gave me the opportunity to just start the business and to just get things going, to work it full time. And that's how I got started.
Nice, nice, nice. So what's your photographic specialty? Because you do photography and videography. So,
well, I started off doing wedding photography. That was the first thing that I ever did. I worked for an agency for about almost 2 years. And so that gave me the opportunity to really hone my skills, to make all the mistakes that I needed to make, to learn as much as I could. And so after about 2 years, I said, maybe it's time to just do things on my own. There's a whole separate story outside of that, the reason why I did do that. And I'm going to say this just to make a point, not to go down a rabbit hole with all of these things, but excuse me. When I worked for the agency, I worked with a videographer. He was a white fella, and he says, "Hey, this other agency over there makes a whole lot of money. You should go and apply for them. They're looking for a lead photographer." I says, "Okay, great. I'll go and I'll check them out." And so I went over and applied and did the interview. And so the same gentleman came over and says, "Well, they're not looking for minority lead photographers." So, all right, cool, no sweat. So another friend of mine, he was a colleague actually. He had a similar opportunity. He said, you should go check out over here. They're looking for a lead photographer. I went over and check with them as well. And, I came in with the same issue. So it's like, okay, fine. So I just decided, instead of just looking at that as a roadblock, I'm just going to start my own business. So I started my own business. I got my business card, got my website. I was already 2 years entrenched into the business, so that part was pretty good. And so that's how I got started with Nick Carter Photography in terms of photography.
But you studied photography. You took classes in photography before you had your corporate gig, yeah?
That was super important. I mean, we're going back to the days when this was pre-digital. So that was, we learned about film. Dark room, that type of stuff. We learned the meat and potatoes, aperture, exposure, shutter speed, all of the mechanics of the camera. And, a lot was black and white back then. And so, we learned it from the ground up. We didn't just have, a cell phone or something or a digital camera to be able to, take pictures. We had to learn it old school.
Yeah,
that was
settings,
good.
manual settings.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Emmanuel cities, absolutely, and I think that's that's a whole nother story. But yeah,
Mm-hmm. So what's the soundtrack to your life?
the soundtrack to my life. Well, you know, as life goes, you understand that like we all change and we all evolve, and so does the soundtrack. So I
Mm.
think at a certain point in my life, let's say when I was in college, maybe it's 1970, 78 or so, maybe second year of college, um, I was miserable. You know, I was working a job that I hated. Think I probably hated myself. I didn't know what I wanted to do in school, all that stuff. I just remember being in a zoology class. It's like, why am I in a zoology class? I don't know. I love animals, but I'm dissecting a frog. You know, that means nothing to me. But I had to take the class. You know, and yeah, all that stuff. So I got home. Earth, Wind, and Fire had just released an album, the All in All album, and there's a song on there called Fantasy, and the song it's just talking about getting away. It's just talking about, you know, all these things, but more so than the lyrics of the song was the music. It felt as though it was just taking me on this journey, taking me to this other place, you know, where I could be. It was escapism. Escapism is what it was. That song meant a whole lot to me because it took me someplace else until I could find a better place. So that song, that means a whole lot to me. But, you know, that was, you know, back in the 70s. But, you know, as in 2020, as of right now, I think of the soundtrack that just really sticks with me is Bob Marley, man. I love, yeah, you know the song Three Little Birds. It says, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right.
Right. Yeah,
Don't
baby.
worry
Yeah, baby.
about a thing. Clap with me now.
Okay,
'Cause
clap with you
every
now.
little thing
Clap with you
is
now.
gonna be all right. This is my message to you.
So,
And in
if you
this
weren't
climate,
doing, hmm?
and in
If
this
you weren't doing
climate,
photography, what would you be doing?
if I were not a photographer slash videographer, I would probably be a musician or I would be a pizzaiolo. I would love to make pizzas for a living, maybe like in the Caribbean or just somewhere cool, or just making pizzas, period. You know, that I have a real passion for, you know, for cooking in general, but specifically pizzas. That's my favorite food, always has been, probably always will. And I have a completely separate Instagram page that's dedicated to pizza and to food, basically. It's Nick's Pizza and Jazz. You know, it's at Nick's Pizza and Jazz. So if you want to check out some good looking food, you'll check it out. And hopefully in about a year or two, you'll be able to come to the restaurant, check out some good pizzas and listen to some good music from a lot of my good friends.
I think it's really sexy the way you use dough.
Oh, we've got stories.
Oh my gosh. Um, so you're a big jazz aficionado. Who are your jazz favorites?
I love jazz. I've always loved it since, you know, since forever. Um, some of my that also is an evolution as well. It's like, you know, you get familiar with different artists over time and new artists come up. But to answer that question directly, I probably think it's Cannonball Adderley because he's probably the one that I listen to the most. I mean, there's just something about his sound, that the song selections that he has. Just love it. Just love that stuff. I love Miles Davis. I mean, you know, I love some of the local artists as well. You know, outside of the you know, the golden age. I mean, you know, I have a lot of friends that are jazz musicians. I just love their music. You know, there's a good friend of mine, Amina Figueroa, just ridiculously good. Her and her husband Bart. I mean, just oh man, they're just so good. And a friend of mine, Ronnie Ben Hur and Harvey S. They're just so they're just so good when you listen to the music and you just sit back and it's like, wow, this is real cool. You know,
Mm.
another friend of mine, Andrea Brackfeld. She's a flute player. She just did this recent CD. Uh, it's like a lot of Brazilian music. Man, you just sit back and you know, your lounge chair. You have your favorite potent potable, and you sit back. You put your headphones on. You listen to that stuff, and man, you can just groove. So those are some of my favorites. But I love my favorite jazz vocalist is by far Sarah Vaughan.
Oh, yes.
And we can't talk about Billy Eckstein enough. And surprisingly, my mom loved Billy Eckstein, and so do I.
So what's the groove of what kind of mood do you like to sort of muster when you're doing photography? Because you do a lot of black and white photography. Are you thinking those sort of jazz movements when you're shooting?
No, not at all. Because if it's a wedding thing, I mean, that's in the moment. So that is just totally what it is. So you just vibe off of that thing, and you just try to, you bring it in and you put it back out, that type of thing. But I will say that some of the stuff that I do think about are like some of the influences that I've had over time, and those would be watching when I was a kid. Alfred Hitchcock would come on the regular. And so there was the black and white of Alfred Hitchcock movies is just spectacular. The cinematography of that is spectacular. It always caught me even as a kid. So some of that stuff just filtered into me over time. And so my style has very much been about that. It may not be the most popular anymore. And would love to be able to shoot that more often, but that's what I kind of invoke when I do photography, as well as videography as well. And also some of the influences of some of the past photographers, C.S. Bull, George Harrell. Those guys are from the 40s, man. They did a lot of the Hollywood glam photography.
Yes.
And if you just take a look at it, C.S. Bull, cat's smoking, man.
Very
George Harrell.
Garbo-ish.
All that stuff. That just turns me on like nobody's business. So, those are just my influences.
Mm-hmm. So when is the jazz documentary, since you have such a love of older jazz musicians who are sort of coming to the end of their careers and such?
Wait a minute. How do you know about
that? I think I heard something about that. Some pillow talk, maybe.
Anyway.
I heard you talking about it with someone.
Yeah. Well, I'm raising funds and looking to get a grant to be able to do a documentary about jazz artists, about jazz musicians, and maybe just expand that out to musicians in general, because it's like, man, when you sit back and you have conversations around dinner or just hanging out with these dudes, it's like everybody's got these great stories. I mean, really good stories. I remember being at dinner once at a restaurant, and there's this famous piano player. Well, he passed a couple of years ago. His name was Don Friedman, and Don Friedman has played with all the jazz greats, and so he was recounting this story out in California about playing with the famous singer and trumpet player Chet Baker. And it was such a fascinating story. It's like, wow. Then, this person over here will tell me a story about this, and then someone else will recount a story about that. And they're all so very interesting stories. And it's like, wow, somebody should write a book about that, or at least, I don't know, I'm not going to write a book, but I can do a documentary about it, and I will. But speaking of documentaries, I've done several documentaries before, and that kind of leads in. I'm going to tie this in to a question you might ask me down the road. It's like I've been doing this for over 20 years now. And, I'm really just so fortunate and blessed to have worked really, really hard and to, see some great successes at photography and videography. And I've had the opportunity to, work with, celebrities and so on and so forth. These are real pinch me moments, if you will. I mean, you're in the same room with putting a lapel mic on Taraji P. Henson, right? It's pretty cool, or, doing a thing. It's like you're shooting a concert and Tony Bennett's in the front row. Then he walks over and, you shake his hand and say, "Hello, Mr. Bennett." That's good stuff, man. Or, so on and so forth. Working with Mariano Rivera, a couple of times, just meeting him and meeting his family and hanging out. That's really good stuff. And the last thing, can I tell you my Sotomayor story?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
Tell me.
Supreme Court Justice.
Yes.
Sotomayor. Yeah. I was working for the New York Women's Bar Association, and she was the keynote speaker for that. And she got up. She walked into the room. all the judges and attorneys in New York City came there to greet her, and this long line formed from the Bronx to Manhattan. You know, it was really a long line. Not really, but figurative. Um, so they came in and
Oops. Oops. Hold on. I hear you.
Pauline. Anyway, um, yeah, and so this long line. So she says to me, she says, "What is your name?" She said, "My name." I said, "My name's Nick." She says, "I want you to stand right here and just take the pictures. Don't take anybody else's cell phones." Right. So I'm taking the pictures, boom, boom, back and forth. Next, boom, boom. She'll give everybody like 20 seconds. Boom, boom. Next, all the way down. So the event starts. She goes. She's, people get up to speak. She starts to speak, so on and so forth, and then she does a Q&A after that. And after the Q&A, she comes up and she says, "Nick, give him your camera." And I'm thinking, like, first of all, she remembers my name, and then second of all, give who my camera? She says. Then I'm looking at her like, what? And she says, "Give him your camera." It was her assistant. So reluctantly, I gave him the camera, and so she just turned around, and she had the presence of mind to remember my name, but also to take a picture with me.
Mhm.
That was the coolest thing. That was cool, really cool.
She's a cool woman. She's a cool
Yeah, yeah,
lady. She's a
yeah,
cool queen.
yeah,
We
yeah.
love cool ladies, cool queens.
But
Don't we,
despite,
ladies? We love cool ladies. So, how do you relax?
can I just say one more thing about that last piece, if you don't
Okay.
mind? Out of meeting all those great people and all that stuff, right? The most fulfilling jobs that I've ever had were working with give back organizations, such as I work with this organization called Song Catchers. Right, Song Catchers is based in New Rochelle, New York. They've been in existence for about over 40 years, and they provide musical education to students who long-term musical education, high-class education to kids that would not otherwise be able to. And
Mm,
so they do that. And when I get into that room with those kids and with those teachers, those dedicated teachers that just want to, impart this great information, not just about music, but about life, man, I am so fulfilled. And it's not even about money. It's half the time I don't even, you know, I give back to the organization if anything. And, they've always been great. And also giving back, I work with this other organization. It's called JASA. It's the Jewish Assisted Services for the Aging, that type of thing. The most fulfilling job that I've ever had. I mean, it's forget about money. It's just about when you're in the same room with these people that have been Holocaust survivors, and these in the room with people that have been aged, but they have these great stories to tell. I mean, it's just the best thing. That's the stuff right there.
hmm
Talking about being fulfilled. And I think that's ultimately, when we get to a certain place, that's what we want for ourselves, is to be fulfilled. We don't want a corporate job. We want to be fulfilled. And I think that, God has a plan and a purpose for our lives. I call it God. And some people might say the universe or whatever you want to call it. But there is a plan for our lives. And once we get into that sweet spot of where we need to be, that's when everything just kind of happens. And this is way past money. It's all about fulfillment, not for ourselves. We all have talents. We've been
Right.
given gifts and talents for a purpose. And, with that purpose, we have to find a place for it, and if our ears and eyes are open, that place opens up for us and we're able to just jump right in there for that. And that's absolute complete fulfillment. And our gifts and talents are not just for us, but it's for other people, to be an asset to the collective.
Right. And to be able to bless someone else, in the
Yes, yes,
process too. I mean,
absolutely.
this life can't be just for us, about us, especially, in these times, where no man is an island, right? No woman's an island either, right?
Mm.
So, and music is something that's so foreign in schools now because it's the thing that's been omitted from a lot of the school programs. And music helps children learn to count, learn patience, all these sorts of things. And so yes, these organizations in school have no money, so for you to be able to donate your time and document their training and their music learning is lovely. And I just kind of love your passion.
Mm. I love your passion.
I love your passion.
Mm.
So what are some of your
You have nice
favorite shoot
passion.
locations? What?
Nothing.
Oh,
Never mind.
what are some of your favorite shoot locations? Where have you gone that you really enjoy shooting?
Oh man, I really enjoy everything from shooting our two cats at home, which just brings so much pride and joy to us, to having shot weddings like all over the world. Just going to Hawaii on multiple occasions. Weddings in Mexico. California. All over. It's really nice to go to those places, not just to shoot, but to be there and to experience that location, to experience that culture, to take a few days, for myself, for ourselves, and to to really experience that. And that's the funniest thing that you should mention that, because it's funny. If I have a job in New Jersey, you're not interested in being an assistant. But the moment that I have a job in the Caribbean or some other place, your bags are packed before mine. What is that?
Yes, this is my husband, folks. Those of you who might be joining in, this is my dear husband, Nicholas Carter. So, how many times have you been called out thinking you were like Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys?
I am Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys.
Huh? What?
I am him. No. It used to happen all the time as a kid. I used to get phone calls. Of course, Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys would have his phone number published in the what do you call that, Yellow Pages or whatever. So these old
Yellow
girls would
Pages.
call up back in the '90s saying,
Mm.
"Yo, can I speak to Nick, please?" Say, "Who's speaking?" Oh, I just love your blonde hair. You're so sexy. I'm thinking I'm Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys. Go figure. But the kids. So it's all good.
Someone is asking what's your favorite place in Indigo Blue wants to know what your favorite place in Hawaii is.
Okay. My favorite place in Hawaii, above all, is Maui. Maui was the joint, man. And Kihei was like right on the coast there. The reason that I like Hawaii so much, I'm sorry, the reason that I like Maui so much was that the moment that we landed, oh, sorry.
I'm going to punch you in the nose. Hey, Helen, why you always have to mess with me, Nick?
What I be done did.
Why you always have to mess with me?
What I be done did.
You have to cook tonight for messing with me.
I would be honored, my dear.
So,
Hey, Helen.
huh?
I said hi to Helen.
Oh, hi, Helen. So, talk to me more about the type of videography stuff that you've been working on.
Yeah, about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided that I would get into doing like more videography, some wedding stuff, but more specifically towards documentary type things, because there's things that you can do with videography that you cannot do with photography, and vice versa. But there were stories that I wanted, just to go back a little bit. There were stories that that I wanted to tell, not for myself but for other people. And excuse me. And ever since I was young, I was always into documentaries. That was my way of learning. So just to go back a little bit, when I was in grade school, I was bored out of my mind. I was never really interested in the subject matter that they had presented. I would do it, but I had no real interest in it until that subject matter included a documentary. And when the lights went out and that documentary came on, I mean, I was just into it, man. And so at the end of it, we would have to write there would be a test that would be provided to talk about, the subject matter. And every single time I would be at the top of the list for it. So that was my way of learning. Just fast forward, documentaries are really important for me. And it's just something that I want to do. And
I dig it.
it's part of the plan and the design, and what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's really it.
I dig it. So totally separate subject. Totally
Uh-oh.
separate subject. Since I've already said that you're my husband, tell everyone what you said to me the other day about why you proposed to me twice.
I knew I should have left the
Because he
room.
proposed to me twice, about 6 months apart.
Okay. Well, Joy says that I proposed. Well, I actually did kind of propose to her twice. Come to think of, it. We were in Martha's Vineyard, I think it was, and I asked her to, we just started talking about.
It
So,
was
that would
Martha's
be a nice.
Vineyard.
Huh?
It wasn't Pennsylvania. It was Martha's Vineyard.
That's what I just said, my dear.
Oh, I thought you said Pennsylvania. Sorry.
Yes, Martha's Vineyard. And so I said, oh, that would be a really nice place to get married, like that. And so I was just talking out loud, and we had not even discussed marriage or anything like that. And so you went into the room, started crying, like what wedding, kind of a thing. It's like, I don't even know where it came from. It just came out. So that was that. That was number one. The number two is we were at a Indian restaurant, and I made a formal proposition to you. And so I guess technically you could say that I proposed to you twice, but the reason that I proposed to you twice is that you are a classic Gemini. I swear I had to propose to both of you guys.
You're so insane. I really ought to get you for that.
Can I talk about you just for a moment?
What?
Can I talk about you just for a moment? Can I
I
talk about you just for a
think
moment?
so.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on.
Okay. And this is all complimentary, actually. I think you were one of the most brilliant women that I know. You were just really bad. You were just something else. Smart, crazy, silly, well-versed, well-spoken, all good-looking, all that kind of stuff. Right?
Just
So
remember,
all
we're in quarantine, so you better say something nice to me.
I cannot use enough adjective to describe. But with that said, the way that you get on the floor with the cats or with somebody else's dog and just play gaga goo goo, that type of thing, and babies and all that, you just go down to that level, right? But then when you come back up, you can go to the table with the most brilliant CEO on the planet and have discourse about a conversation about almost anything in the world. I think that you want to talk about sexy, that's sexy. That's all I have to say about that.
That's all I have to say about that. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel the same way about you.
I'm not as smart as you are.
Now
You're
you
something
have
else.
all
You're
those
brilliant.
pretty words recorded. Yes, I do. I have all those words recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Does
And I
anybody have
committed
any
all of that.
questions
I
about
committed all that to
photography?
memory.
What?
I said I committed all of that to memory of all that stuff that I wrote.
Oh, you did?
That you wrote about
Oh.
you. Yeah.
Oh.
I committed it all to memory. No,
Don't
I
you
said
mess
that. I
with
meant
me.
it.
Oh, I love you too. Anything else you want to add, Nick Carter?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
What's this
Ending
artwork
up.
behind you? What's this artwork behind you?
Oh yeah. Behind me is that's one piece of artwork that I've been working on, which at I don't know, COVID kind of interrupted things, but I will be doing an art exhibit coming up, I don't know, sometime soon when things open up, and that's just one of the pieces there. Believe it or not, that is the bottom of a rusted out boat. We were out in Greenport, New York, and there was we're at a shipyard,
Yes.
and looking at boats, and underneath the boats,
No, go
underneath the
on.
boats, there was these patterns and designs that had been patinaed over time because of the uh-oh.
Go out, and then you come back. Then it works.
Such is life. We roll with the punches.
Such is life. It's kind of like a song. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you go out, and sometimes anyway.
So
that's all I was saying. You were saying something.
Oh yeah, I don't even remember at this point. But now since this hiccup has happened, I mean, isn't this like just so indicative of life?
It is
like you're
indicative
going through
of
the
life.
motions, and things happen. We get hiccups along the way. We just got to keep it moving, man. That's just the way it is. I mean, don't worry about a thing. Everything's going to be all right. As long as we have our health, we're good. We can do anything that we need to. And I think that's the word. That's what I would love to impart here. Is that don't worry about a thing. Everything's going to be all right. Period.
I'm down with that.
You down?
I can definitely, yes, my temple wellness, everything will be all right. All of this, even with these dire predictions, we cannot stay focused on the craziness of life. We just have to keep pushing forward and just move on. Steve is asking you about your best and your worst shoot.
Steve, hey man, hope you got some nice weather out there in California. You're doing okay with all of the social distancing and all that. I don't really feel that sorry for you, man, because you are in California, man. It's not like you're in New York and the weather's like up and down. But California's, you go in your backyard, you're pretty good, man. Um, anyway, the best shoot. If you don't mind, Steve, I think I can expand it out. One of the best shoots that I think that I've ever had was probably in Mexico. I was doing a shoot for a good friend of mine, Janine. Janine's now a baby photographer. I think it's called Bella Blue Photography or something like that. She is the most amazing baby photographer like you ever want to see. Just blows your mind. But anyways, that was one of the best shoots that I've ever had. I remember shooting at Joy was with me that day, and we were did a pre-shoot on the Thursday, and it was 82 degrees in the month of November. And excuse me, we're in the water. My feet are in the water. The bride and groom, they're literally in the water. And so Joy, she turns around and she says, "Nice day at the office." And so I took about 5 seconds. I looked around, says, "Yeah, you're right." And the worst shoot is, I can't even talk about it.
Oh, well.
It was in upstate New York, whole lot
Oh.
of things went wrong, and it was all my fault. And it was just like the next day, you just crawl up in the fetal position, and you just stay there for a few days, and then you just come out of it, and you realize that it's like you just gotta keep going, because I mean, when you do anything in life, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna have pitfalls and shortcomings. You're gonna second guess yourself. All of these things are all going to come into play, and so you end up playing this, fighting against your own mind, fighting against your own emotions. But once you can get past that, you build your strength, you get your intestinal fortitude, and you just understand the importance of your mission. You just keep going, just like a soldier. Period.
Yeah, just like a soldier. Got to get deep into the trenches. You got to get dirty, and hopefully nobody dies. And you get to look up and just keep going, because fortitude is everything, right?
That's everything.
It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. Not
That's
an
the whole
original
thing.
thought, but an extremely true one.
Yeah, and you can't give up. I mean, it's like once you get, that's like a defining moment there. It's like once you get to the place where you start making those mistakes, and you just and they do come. Even at this stage we make mistakes, but we have to learn from them, and we have to just keep going, because once that we get to that place, and if we don't keep going, it's just like we miss out on all of those other good things that could have happened, not only for ourselves but for other people. So that's why we have to keep going. That's our mission. That's our goal. That's our plan. And we have to have a whole lot of. I'm going to use a $10 word here. We have to be indefatigable when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm. And what do you like most about your job? Helen is asking.
Oh, hey Helen. Um, the thing that I like most about my job is the interface with a lot of the clients, because it's not just about photography. It's about like life, man. I mean, you get to a place where it's like you're not only a photographer, but you're a psychologist. You're a whole lot of different things. And excuse me. I'll say it like this: that a lot of people have uh, shortcomings about themselves. A lot of people have been beaten down over life. Some people have been told that they're ugly. Some people have said that they have low self-esteem, so they don't really want to take pictures. They have people come with all of these things, and so it's kind of like you have to recognize that, understand it, and be able to provide a solution on the spot for someone that you may have never met before. And when that opportunity presents itself, and you create a solution for that.
Wonkity wonk wonk, as you were in the middle of your parting words about life.
Well, none of it's your fault. It's the Instagram. It's the bandwidth that's given to us. So there's nothing you can do about that. But where were we?
You were saying your parting words about life. that photography and things sometimes
Yeah,
happen that you can't control. Hey,
sure.
Alvin, things happen that you can't control and you just keep it
Yeah.
moving. Sometimes it's cloudy when you want it to be sunny. Sometimes a guest backs up into a wedding cake. What are you
Mhm,
going to do?
mhm. Yeah, well, when it comes to weddings or photo shoots or of any sort, a lot of people have their insecurities that they come with, and so as a photographer, it's more than just taking pictures. It's about again about being a psychologist. If you talk to any wedding planner, they will tell you half of their job is psychology, and it's the same thing with photographers. And same thing with interior designers. In fact, I mean,
Oh,
there's a
hell
certain
yes.
psychology that comes with that, and if you don't know, you better find out real fast. And somebody's going down a one-way street. Anyway, she's like, why did that, um, why are you so easily distracted? Um, anyway, there was a woman that came in for a photo shoot, and she felt uncomfortable about herself, about her body image. She was told by her husband and about a lot of different people from high school that she was too tall and that she was unattractive. That's the way she felt about herself, and her whole body posture was like this. And when you see a person, like this, that means that they're
Closed.
they're insecure. That's what
Yeah.
that says. Even with animals, they cower, they're insecure. So I had her to change her posture to more like this, and I just had this whole half-hour conversation with her, and it became very emotional for her. So when I say it's like not just about photography, it's not. It has a lot to do with the psychology of the person and identifying the person's insecurities, shortcomings, and so on and so forth, and to working on that just for a little while for the purpose not only of the photo shoot but something for them to be able to walk out with.